Hi, I'm Ron.
And I'm Don.
And this is the Ron and Don Show. Thanks for joining us again today. Today's topic is getting ready for spring. There are many areas in the exterior of a restaurant, but today we're going to focus specifically on landscaping. And in order to have a conversation on landscaping, we have brought in our sponsor for the day, and that's DENTCO. Trent, welcome.
Thank you, guys. Thank you very much for having me. And wanted to talk a little bit about DENTCO. We started our business 41 years ago in the state of Michigan, and we were a small company starting up in Lansing, and we've been able to grow our business now to where we're a nationwide provider. So our customers have liked what we're doing, and we've been able to grow our company now to where we're a nationwide management company for exterior services management. And what we focus on primarily is landscaping, snow removal, and parking lot maintenance. And that's kind of our niche, and that's kind of what we do well.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for being with us today, and thank you to DENTCO for being our sponsor.
Thanks for having me.
And I very much appreciate you being here. You're a nationwide company. Your customers have caused you to grow by asking you to move into areas you've never been in before.
Yep.
And that's why we asked you to be a sponsor for us, and I appreciate you being here to help us. I want to talk a little bit about exterior conditions after particularly a snowfall in the north. What happens what kind of damages and what kind of situations with sand and piling up the snow, what happens?
Yep, so first thing in the spring is you want to make sure that you're holding your vendor accountable for cleaning up any snow damage, okay, that's occurred from snow plowing. And there's typical things that will happen will be curb damage, different types of parking lot damage. There can be some plant life that's been damaged. You want to look for those things and set a timeline for your vendor to make sure that they get that cleaned up for the spring. A main thing that we see a lot at DENTCO is, where they pile the snow, there's going to be a lot of debris left there. You want to make sure you get the parking lot cleaned up, ready for customers, and get things tidied up and looking good for the spring.
When they pile up the snow on landscape area, what happens?
Well, a lot of times if they push the snow into the grass, you're going to end up with dead grass there. You're going to end up with some type of turf damage. So you've got to decide if you want to seed that area and water it and grow it back in, or if you just want to sod that area and repair it that way.
Do you get broken bushes from the snowplows?
Absolutely. We've seen it all. Broken shrubs, down limbs, all types of different things can happen when it's crazy snowing and guys are out there plowing and they've been working all hours of the night. So we're understanding of that, but we need to hold the vendors accountable for any damage that they've occurred and make sure that they're responsible for cleaning things up and getting your site ready.
So getting rid of the sand on the lot, did you just wash it down the storm drain?
Definitely do not wash it down the storm drain. We tend to either parking lot sweep or backpack blow it up and take the debris off site.
And what about it? Do you look into the storm drains to see if they're partially plugged from it?
You definitely want to make sure the storm drains are clean it out and ready for the spring rain. That's going to be on the way.
All right,
Yeah.
So we're having a very specific conversation about snow. Now, DENTCO is a national service provider, so let's talk about other areas that aren't necessarily damaged by snow. I would imagine that between frost and freezing, that's certainly a much larger swath of the U.S. that you have to deal with things like that. And I would imagine not just landscaping, but irrigation and other systems as well.
Yep, so first things first when you're getting ready for a spring startup is making sure your irrigation's ready to go. Obviously we know we get a lot of rain in the springtime, but you've got to make sure your irrigation's activated. So I would say first steps to that process are going to the backflow, making sure your backflow is not cracked and it's been blown out correctly, hopefully. And, activating the backflow, getting the zones fired up, going through the system, running through zone by zone, turning them on, running the heads, and checking for any leaks. If you've got leaks or water coming up out of the ground, make sure you get the lateral or main lines repaired. And once those repairs are made, then you can start repairing your heads and adjusting your nozzles, getting your sprays dialed in for where you want to water, and then setting the timer and kind of getting a program started and dialed in.
So coming up out of the ground, we've got the irrigation taken care of. Now I suppose we're looking at plants and other areas of vegetation.
Yeah, so I'd say, once you have your irrigation ready, the next things are getting your planting beds ready for the growing season. So what involves with that would be identifying any dead plants or any damaged plants, deciding what you want to do with those. And you want to make sure that you're replacing, if you're going to do a plant replacement, you're replacing with the right plant in the right place. So that means making sure it matches up with the hardiness zone and making sure you plan for that plant to grow. You don't want to put them on top of each other. So when you're getting your beds ready and you're thinking about doing replacements, make sure you've got a vendor that is putting the right plant in the right place. And other things to consider when it comes to bed maintenance would be, are you going to be putting any type of fertilizer down, and what are you going to be doing for weed control? I'd say weed control is probably the most important thing when it comes to managing the beds, and I think mulch is a great idea to help with weed control and weed prevention, and it's also going to help retain moisture. So you got to consider when it comes to mulching, how you want to manage that, how much are you willing to spend on mulching, and making sure the beds are clear of any old mulch before you put it down. You don't want to be piling on.
I think that's a very important point that I'm sure Don would like to harp on as well.
Well, yeah, when you pile mulch on top of mulch year after year, you build up a level, and especially around buildings, the water will now drain towards the building rather than away from the building from any rains or snows or whatever. And the landscaper has to leave drainage paths through the landscape areas for water to get away from the building. Otherwise, we have unwanted biological action going on in the buildings from water migrating into it.
Yeah.
And what about trees? You got a flare in the tree.
So that is the big no-no, and everybody, I think, sees the pyramids around the trees and thinks that that's the way they're supposed to mulch, and they couldn't be more wrong. When you're mulching around a tree, you make sure you get a good maybe 2 to 3 in depth around the ring of the tree, but right directly around the trunk, you want to dig that back and make sure that there's no mulch intruding around the tree base. And what that's going to allow is the tree to grow properly and not cause what we call girdling roots. And those roots over time, as the tree gets bigger, will suffocate the tree, and that tree's not going to be healthy. So please don't pyramid around the trees. Make sure that mulch is spread out evenly, and the main thing is make sure that it's away from the trunk, the base of the tree.
So basically, we want to be able to see the roots coming out from the tree.
Yep.
And then the mulch can start after that.
Yeah.
The flare is where the roots go out.
Yep.
And then after they've pretty much not quite got level, but
yes,
level, then you can have them.
Then that's where the mulch is, yeah. I mean, as soon as you start to see the tree go like this, that's where you don't want to be mulching. Make sure that area and you leave the space there.
Terrific.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned earlier weed and pest control. You were specifically referring to beds, but
Yeah.
you might as well discuss that topic as it pertains to all vegetation areas.
Sure. Thinking about the turf and getting the turf ready when it comes to weed or pest control, I think a great idea and a thing that works very well is coming up with a fertilizer program that's going to allow your turf to flourish. And what I mean by that is you want to develop a strong turf stand that's dense and doesn't allow a lot of gaps for weeds to fill in. So how you can do that is, pretty simple. You can come up with a fertilizer plan, maybe of a slow release nitrogen, a urea 3 times a year if it's a slow release, and that will really help build density in your turf stand and also allow for, the green color that everybody likes to see when it comes to looking at a nice turf grass stand.
Now, we're talking about a spring cleanup. When is it that DENTCO recommends that this should be done?
Getting out in the northern states, I think April is a great time to make your first application. If you're going to be putting down a pre-emergent, end of March, beginning of April is a really good time to put down that pre-emergent if you're going to do a herbicide, and put that down first, and then you can begin your fertilizer program.
And as the regions change, then the timing on that changes.
The timing changes, and your contractor or your vendor should know their area and kind of the right times to put that down, and that can all be discussed when you're coming up with a scope of work and a plan.
Fantastic.
What do you do out west for sprucing up? They may not have much snow in Phoenix or some of the areas out there.
Yeah.
but they're, you know, they want to look sharp coming into the season.
Yep.
What can you do out there?
So, you know, DENTCO, we manage a lot of sites out in the Southwest and what we call desertscapes or hardscapes. And, you know, the main thing we look for out there is the crushed red granite. So, you know, that's what a lot of their beds are made up of. And you just want to make sure that that's replenished to a decent level, and you don't want to leave any bare spots. I mean, that stuff breaks down over time. So just adding a top dressing or filling in, you know, gaps that have maybe gotten washed out or, you know, have dissolved over the course of the winter or, you know, the non-growing season down there. That's what you can really add to the site and, you know, make it pop a little bit better and also help with the weed control.
Well, I know, I would imagine flowers and colors also help a restaurant to pop as the seasons change.
Yep.
But as we were talking about a few minutes before we started, there can be some additional challenges associated with trying to pop with color.
Yeah, so anytime you're thinking about doing an annual install or an annual, you know, ColourPop, as you might want to call it, you got to consider how that's going to get irrigated. So, you know, annual plants require a lot more water than your normal perennials or your shrubs. So you've got to think about who's going to be watering that and how often is that going to be watered. Are you going to have your vendor water it, or is somebody from your site going to be in charge of watering those annuals? And thinking about where to put them, you know, that's just a personal preference. You know, your landscape contractor can help you with that. But the main thing is make sure you know how it's going to be irrigated, or it's going to be a lost cause and you're going to have wasted you know, the investment on putting those in if you're not going to water them.
I can see where they could be burned up before the end of spring.
Yeah, and you know, it's a thing that's easily overlooked because you've got your irrigation already dialed in on your beds, but then you've added in these additional annuals, and you might have to hand water them. You know, you might have to make some adjustments in your planting beds that might be able to cover them, but you've got to figure out how they're going to be watered and how often you want them watered.
Terrific. Well,
Yep.
Today we're talking with Trent from DENTCO about getting ready for spring and
Yep.
all the exterior things that one should think about.
Yep, there's a lot to think about, and I really appreciate the time, and thanks for having me on.
Thank you very much. I'm Ron.
And I'm Don.
This is the Ron and Don Show. A special thanks to our sponsor, DENTCO Exterior Services Management. What's the website for DENTCO?
You can find us at dentco.com, and all the information about our services and what we provide can be found on that website.
That's DENTCO.com.
Yep.
Thank you very much. Please
Thank you.
subscribe.